Hi, Dyan here. I've just finished a cup of tea, so about time for another video. This one involves stencils and paint pens. Come in and watch. So I now have 4 sets of the paint pens. I have the black and white, which was the original one out. I have the basics, which again was the first set of colours, and then I also have 2 more sets. If I just go through these colours, here I've got crushed grape, London blue, cut grass, lemon zest, squeezed orange, postbox red. And then in the 2 other sets, this is set 2. This has After Midnight, Slate Grey, Polished Jade, Fresh Lime, Tangerine Dream, and that is Bubblegum Pink. You can't quite see the name on that, but that's Bubblegum Pink. And then set 3 here, we have Melted Chocolate, Calypso Teal, Dirty Martini, Funky Fuchsia, Pure Sunshine, and Cherry Pie. So I now have 20 pens all together. And here's some I prepared earlier. This is actually my set that I travel with. There'll be more than one colour. You can see I've got 2 lemon zests in there. There'll be more than one of each colour in there. But I travel these everywhere. People always ask me, do I take things on the plane? Yes, of course I do. Nobody asks anything. They're in my, you've probably seen this. This is my accessory bag. It has the elastic on the back, so it will actually fit on the back of your journals or on your diary or in your dialogue. So I have loads of them, and this is where I have my pens in here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you first of all. I know I've done this lots of times before, but people still ask me everywhere how to get these pens going. These pens are unlike any other pen that you will have seen on the market. If I hold this up here, you can see how fine, look how fine that nib is there. That's smaller than any other paint pen. Now you might go, oh, the nib's not too fine, but that's on ink pens. This is a paint pen. Paint is a lot thicker than ink. So the first thing that you need to know with my pens is, you can see here, in fact, if I show one of the packets, you can see that the paint only comes to a certain level on all of them. The paint is only at that level because this is a sealed chamber. The paint can't get out of here at all until you allow it to come out. And then what happens is, here we have that let me hold the black up again so you can see. We have the very fine point, which is inside a metal nib. That metal nib is resting on a big bullet nib, a bit like a big fat Sharpie nib. And that comes down here. And there is a little like flap, like a little trapdoor, stopping the paint there, and it's attached with the bullet nib. So if you imagine that this is the trapdoor and the paint is at this side, when you press down on the nib, this is what happens. It pushes this open and then the paint can escape. So the paint comes up and soaks up the nib. When you stop pushing on the nib, this trapdoor comes back like that and stops it, okay? So what you have to do is you gently push down on this. So I see a lot of people doing this, bang, bang, bang. All you're doing is opening and shutting this trapdoor constantly. I see people shake it a lot. You'll open it and you'll flood the paint out. You really just need to be patient with it. So I'm going to take the pen, and you can see where the paint is here. I'm just going to hold it upright, and I'm just going to gently press down on the nib. So I've pressed down. Now if I lift it up, can you see where the paint has now come further up? You can see. And that's all you need to do because the paint is coming out. And you just need to be patient and wait for the paint to soak. It has to soak, remember, all the way up this bullet nib and underneath. If you bang it or you shake it or you're really impatient, you will flood the pen and then it will break. So you just hold on to it just like this. It doesn't take long. It might seem like a long time when you're doing it, but it isn't. And then, I don't know if you can see, there we go. There's the paint pen. See, that didn't take long. The one that takes the longest to prime is the white one. And the reason for that is white isn't a colour. So this has got paint is made of a clear base with colour in. White isn't a colour. So this has clear base with a colour. This has clear base with a powder, a pigment to make that white. So this is a lot thicker than any other colour. So this takes longer to prime. Once you've got this pen primed like this, you need to know that one, you have to write with it upright. You can't write like this because the nib, remember the nib is so fine that you actually can't write on its side. You have to write upright. A lot of people tell me that they get these pens going and then they stop working. This is my paint and it dries very quick, so sometimes you can get a little skin over the top of here. This actually protects the pen. So if you can't write with it, if you just wet your finger, get a baby wipe, wet your finger and just run this over, it will take the skin off and you'll be able to write with it again. If it still hasn't written, when we primed this, we took paint from here and we put it in here. That's not a very big area. If your pen still isn't writing, you might have used up all this paint because remember, when you lift this up, this shuts. So you might need to just prime it again. You might need to just press it down and prime it again. If you've got paint all round, all in here, if you can see lots of paint, you've flooded it. If you're lucky, you can pull this out, you can wipe it with a baby wipe and you might be able to resurrect it. But a lot of the time you've killed it. It really is just being gentle with the pens. These pens are not for everybody. It's like, you know, one of the top selling white pens is a Unisigno gel pen, which I don't particularly like because every time I write with it, I smudge it because it's too creamy. There's nothing wrong with the pen. It just doesn't suit me. So sometimes if you can't get these going or you struggle with them, maybe it's just not suitable for you. But I absolutely love them. So that's how you get them going. I'm going to put that to one side. And I travel with them all. I travel on the plane. They're absolutely fine to use. So what I wanted to show you was I wanted to do some doodling with stencils. I try and teach people how to doodle and they find it very hard. So some of my latest stencils I actually designed specifically for it. And there'll be links to everything in the comments. If you want to know about anything, just go down, find the product, press on the link and it will take you to and you'll get some information. This is the squiggle stamp. It's not a stamp, it's a stencil. This is the squiggle stencil, which I use a lot. This one here is sugar lumps. This one is the hearts, spring bloom, giraffe, and this is one from earlier, cobwebs, but I do love to doodle this as well. These come in large and small. I've got the large ones here, and I use them all the time. I constantly have on me a black journal, whether it's a journal, whether it's a dialogue, I constantly have a black one on to do. So, and the easiest way if you want to learn how to doodle is just take a stencil. I always have stencils on the plane with me and just draw around the shapes. You can see I'm just going to do a few because I actually have done these earlier. Just draw around the shapes like so. And you can see here going forward, that's the giraffe one. That's this one, where I've drawn round ready. That's the spider web. This is the sugar lumps on its side. There's the squiggle. I made a bit of a boo, but it never bothers me. That was on a plane with a little bit of turbulence. And then that's the spring bloom, okay? And then all I do is I start in them. And the easy thing to do is pick a stencil, pick a doodle. So let me see. I think I'm going to do zigzags. So I'm just going to, oops, there we go. Just need, can you see where it just dried? There we go. So I'm just going to do zigzags across there. Then I might come over here and I'll zigzag. Whoops. I'll zigzag across here. I'm used to turning my book around. Then I might come here and I'll just zigzag across there. And then I think to myself, now what do I want to do? So let's maybe just do some stripes. And this is all I do. I don't think of the whole thing. I just concentrate on one doodle. So I'm going to do the stripes. Then I might put stripes in this one. And then I might go over here, put stripes in this one, and so on and so forth. Then I think of another doodle, and I call this doing the scaffolding. So I just put the basic shape. When I've put something in every one, then I can go back and doodle the doodles. So I could go in here and I could just add more doodles in. Do you see? So I can just build it up. And I just take it one step at a time, and I'm never neat. Never ever neat. I'm normally on a plane. There's a lot of turbulence. There's somebody kicking the seat behind you. Next door to you spills the hot coffee all over you. So don't ever worry about being neat. But then I'll go back and I'll doodle in. So I just want to show you here, because you don't want to sit and watch me doing that. So here, this is one of the spring blooms, and you can see on this one I just did stripes. On this one I just did like a zigzag, and then I did a running stitch behind. And if I just show you one in the dialogue, sorry, I thought I had a clip in it, but I don't. There we go. There's one in the dialogue, and you can see here I've got spots and I've got stripes, different things like that. So there's spring blooms. Here is the squiggle. This is what people love. They love to see this squiggle one. And I do know I've got a page. So again, this is in the dialogue. It's probably the same. Oh, it's upside down. Different way around. They'll look different every time you do it. But you can see, so here's the triangles. The triangles. Here's a swirl. You can see how it builds up. And then with this one, I quite like to do a running stitch right down the middle as well, as you can see on this one. And then I've also got, this is the sugar lumps. I don't have one of these in the dialogue, but you can see I probably started here with circles. I just added loads with circles. I added loads with stripes, and they build up really nice. And then I like to put my, this is from the die cuts pack number 6. So there's the mix and match heads, but any of those white die cuts look fabulous in here. I think those, what have I got in here? Did I have another one in here? Oh, there's giraffe. So again, there's the giraffe one that I've added. So I tend to use the white pen and the stencils in here. I also want to show you as well with the using the journal block. Again, I sit on a plane with the journal block. Can you see this has the shaped edge? I draw one side, I draw another side, and I just slowly come in. And I always recommend you get a white book to doodle with. Practice your drawing. Just do lines. If you draw with white onto black, it always looks that little bit more professional than if you just doodled with a black pen onto white. And I'm constantly, people say to me, oh, your doodling is so perfect, you're so lucky. No, I've spent hours and hours and hours. I even just draw lines, look, I draw lines like that and just doodle in. So I tend to only use my white pen with black. I know lots of people use the coloured pens. I tend not to. What I actually use the coloured pens for is in my diaries, and everything on this side I do with all the coloured pens. I still colour, but I tend to colour in letters. You can see here where I've coloured in letters. I tend not to do colour colouring. So if you see something like this, here, this side, I've coloured in with my inks in the water brushes. But on this side, all this is done with the paint pens. Can you see everything this side? This is water brushes and this is paint pens. So that's how I do it. I also did some doodling in here, you can see as well. I drew around the stencil and then I coloured this in with a black pen, and then I doodled with the black pen in each one. And here's another one that I haven't put anything on the top yet. Again, I used one of the ready-made pages in the large diary, drew through the stencil, doodled through it, and then I coloured it in inks. And again, I did that one on an aeroplane. They're used to me, but that's coloured in with the inks. I don't colour in with the paint pens. You can see over here, this is how I do it. So look after your paint pens. I adore them. There's 20 of them now. I constantly have them with me, constantly have them in my thing. And again, on a plane, have your pens, have some stencils, have your journal block, and then you've always got something to do. Easy when you know how, isn't it?